Welcome to today's training session on the Mavic 2 Enterprise series built to empower, destined to serve. You can see the Enterprise Dual series a bit closer to us on the screen, and the Enterprise Zoom series a bit farther away, both drones being folded up at this point. And speaking of folding up, that is one of the key features of the Mavic 2 Enterprise series, the portability of the aircraft. So you can see folded up, and then here on the right side, unfolded, but ultimately allows quick portability, also being able to store it in a smaller space, being able to carry it in a backpack or fit it in a small trunk spot. Some key benefits of the Mavic 2 Enterprise series there. Also a professional system built to work with the DJI Pilot app and has the ability to attach modular accessories such as a microphone you can see on the Mavic 2 Enterprise series in the bottom right there. The maximum flight time of the aircraft is 31 minutes. The average flight time with an accessory is 25 minutes. Maximum transmission range, 6.2 miles. Weight, right around 2 pounds. And the operating temperature range between 14 and 104 degrees Fahrenheit. If you're looking for average flight time with a specific accessory, you can certainly check out the website to see what that is, as it does vary from accessory to accessory. Comparing the Mavic 2 Enterprise series versus the Mavic 2 Enterprise consumer series that you may be familiar with as well, you can see a good comparison chart here, but one of the key differences, you can see intelligent flight modes such as following someone for cinematography type video, or features like the hyperlapse are not supported on the Mavic 2 Enterprise series. Those are Mavic 2 series intelligent flight features. However, the Mavic 2 Enterprise series does come with expanded zoom capability, thermal imaging for the Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual, and then various features that we'll get into more today. Also has greater onboard storage of 24 gigabytes versus the 8 gigabytes of the consumer series, and self-heating batteries are supported with the Mavic 2 Enterprise series for those colder temperatures. Few of the overall features of the Mavic 2 Enterprise as a whole here. First off, with the Zoom series, talking about dynamic zoom is obviously a key benefit for a lot of users. When we're talking about infrastructure, the ability to stay farther away and utilize that 6-time dynamic zoom, 2-time optical, and 3-time digital. 4K video recording at 30 frames per second, 2.7K at 60 frames per second, and 120 frames per second slow motion. 12 megapixel camera. The Enterprise Dual does support 4 times digital zoom with an Android device. The maximum frame rate of the Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual is limited to 30 frames per second only. And just to clarify, that Android device there, that would include Crystal Sky, Smart Controller, which we'll get into later on here. You just would not have that digital zoom capability for the Enterprise Dual if you're using an iOS device with the system as your mobile device. Omnidirectional obstacle sensing. So it has 8 vision sensors, 2 infrared sensors. The infrared sensors are on the bottom and top of the aircraft. Visual wise, we have 2 on the back, 2 on the bottom, 1 on each side, and 2 on the front. And ultimately, those sensors combine together to really provide some really great obstacle avoidance capability. There is some small blind spots with the system, as you can see in that great visual representation in the top right. Almost the sensor comes out as a cone, so when you're looking at the corners of the aircraft or the sides of the aircrafts in various flight modes, that wouldn't be necessarily detecting obstacles, but overall a great feature to have for the safety of the aircraft. With that obstacle sensing enabled, if you try to fly at an obstacle, the drone is going to stop when it detects the obstacle and not allow you to continue flying into said obstacle. But with the Mavic 2 Enterprise Zoom, there's also an advanced pilot assistance system that enables the drone to detect objects and will autonomously help you fly around said object. So that APAS is a feature with the Mavic 2 Zoom. And just to remember, omnidirectional optical sensing does not cover all 360 degrees of the Mavic 2 aircraft as a whole. OcuSync 2.0, superior transmission system. Key thing here is supports automatic dual frequency band switching between the 2.4 and 5.8 gigahertz bands. And that's what helps enable the video transmission up to 6.2 miles with full HD video resolution. Just to note, due to local policy, some countries may not support 5.8 gigahertz transmission. Where I am here in the US, the 5.8 gigahertz transmission is legal and used. Onboard storage, 24 gigabytes here. Just a quick got you, that does get some pilots. If you take some photos or videos, you might not realize you have onboard storage selected. So when you go to review said photos and videos, you might be wondering where they're at. They're stored on the onboard storage of the aircraft itself. So it's very nice. You don't necessarily have to worry about SD cards, can just use the internal storage if you would like. Password protection and video encryption, some good security features here. In regards to the password protection, you can enable that, and then the internal storage that we just touched on cannot be accessed by those who do not have the password. They could go ahead and reset the password, but what that is going to do is it's going to clear the internal storage of the aircraft, so any photos or videos that are on there would not be able to be accessed without said passcode. Technically, you do have to type in the passcode as well in order to fly the aircraft when you first open the pilot app and you have that enabled. But as I said before, I could technically reset the passcode to fly the drone. It's just the photos and video on the internal storage are protected. A nice feature to have. And then also the industry standard AES-256 video transmission encryption keeps your data transmission secure, so you can be sure that there's no interception happening between the aircraft and your remote controller. Self-heating battery ability, very key for those who could be in a colder area. But when the temperature is between -4 and 43 degrees Fahrenheit, and the battery level is above 45%, the battery can go ahead and heat itself to 46 to 50 degrees. Just to note, the operating temperature range of the Mavic 2 Enterprise series is between 14 degrees and 104 degrees Fahrenheit. You can also use regular Mavic 2 batteries in the Mavic 2 Enterprise series if you would like. If you're not in a colder temperature, that is an option. But as we obviously see here, colder temperatures, the self-heating batteries can be very beneficial. If you're not sure which batteries you have, you can flip the battery, and on the bottom, there's a little red bar that says self-heating battery. Excuse me, if it is indeed a self-heating battery. GPS and timestamp. So great for evidence documentation here, or just to know exactly when and where a photo was taken. This is just a quick toggle in the app that we'll talk about later on when we get into the pilot app. But you can see there has the date, the time, and the GPS location, and that is based off of the time on your mobile device. So I want to make sure that time is correct, as it would be most of the time, but just an FYI in that regard. DJI AirSense, the Mavic 2 Enterprise series, is built with ADS-B in. So it's going to be communicating with anything in the area that's sending an ADS-B out, such as small planes, potentially helicopters. It's only going to get ADS-B in information from stuff that is generating ADS-B out. The drone itself also does not have ADS-B out, so it's not transmitting its location. But as a pilot, this is very beneficial. You can see exactly where aircraft are in the area and get notification if there's something nearby, so you can make sure to lower or land your aircraft, or just keep an eye on that other air traffic. Discrete mode, able to turn the LED lights on the arms off. If you needed the flight of the aircraft to be a little bit more discreet and you didn't want the LED lights on. Panorama mode here. You can see in the top right, the photo mode panorama. And then the view here, you go down. It's almost like 360 view, depending on what type of panorama has been taken. Really nice benefit for this is easily capturing a scene. So we've seen these used in post-wildfire documentations. Multiple panoramas can easily show multiple neighborhoods. Getting into the Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual here, visible and thermal imagery. So you can see when we have a close-up look at the camera here, there's actually two lenses there. We have our infrared and we have our visual. So good to have there. On the right side is going to be the infrared module. On the left side is the visual. Visible mode, a 12 megapixel camera. Video, as we mentioned before, 4K to 30 frames per second. For the IR mode, the native resolution is going to be 160 by 120. And then it also has an MSX mode that we'll jump into where you can combine the infrared visual footage together, which is a FLIR patented technology. For those of you who might not be familiar with infrared, infrared sits on the electromagnetic spectrum between visible light and microwaves, looking at that graphic on the top right. And the primary source of infrared radiation is heat. And believe it or not, heat doesn't always have to be hot. We think of items, something that could be hot, like boiling water or, technically a person on a cold day, which definitely is going to show up, but cold objects will actually emit infrared as well. The infrared camera is allowing us to see thermal energy in action, so that's why you'll hear these cameras referred to as infrared, as thermal, or even IR for short, and that's actually what you'll click on in the app if you want to switch over to this infrared object. There's also some different items to be aware of when we're talking about infrared, and we certainly won't be covering that all today, but just wanted to give you a brief overview, a brief high level of what infrared exactly is. Getting into the MSX technology here, so you can see on the top right would be just the IR view, and then below that would be MSX. Again, as I mentioned, this is a FLIR patented technology, but basically it overlays the visible camera image onto the thermal video and stills. And it helps you see details. So for example, looking at this tank here, that might just all show up as one color in a regular fashion, but when you combine it with the visible camera, you're able to see those numbers, that detail, that writing from the outline on the visual camera. Just like the coffee cup there, you couldn't see the DJI logo, but when you enable MSX, it actually enables you to do so. And within the application, when you turn MSX on, you can just go ahead and adjust what we call the fusion intensity. So if you have that slider all the way to the bottom, low fusion intensity, it's going to be a lot more visual camera. The top at high fusion intensity, it's going to be a lot more infrared information there. So really the choice is yours. It's defaulted to just be right in the middle, but that's kind of how the MSX technology works and can be quite useful to overlay the IR camera information on top of visual details that you may need to be looking at as well. Also useful for situational awareness as well as the pilot to help see obstacles and information. Color palettes are also supported by the Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual. So when we're talking about color palettes here, the temperature range of the image is actually mapped to be different colors as the pilot or the operator when you are looking at the image and getting the video transmission. So some of the different modes here, you can see hotspot, rainbow, gray, hot metal, and cold spot. For example, hotspot, the hottest item is going to be red, while the coldest is going to be black, so that whatever's hot really stands out. And vice versa for cold spot, whatever's cold is going to be blue and stand out. There's rainbow, gray, and hot metal, which you can see pictured here in the top right. Gain modes. So you have auto, low, and high. Default would just be to leave it on auto and let the camera do the work. But you can see high gain mode is going to be between 14 degrees Fahrenheit and 284 degrees Fahrenheit. Low gain mode between 14 degrees Fahrenheit and 752 degrees Fahrenheit. So maybe if we're looking at a fire or something that's very hot, low gain mode, high gain mode, looking at a person, maybe a search and rescue type situation, or inspecting a distribution circuit and not anticipating any temperatures to significantly exceed that. Once again, auto gain mode is an option as well. Temperature measurement capabilities here. First one being spot meter, where you can simply just tap in the app and get a temperature there using the radiometric camera. And then the second one is the spot meter. So you can draw a rectangle, you can adjust the size of that rectangle, and it's going to go ahead and tell you, as you can see in the bottom right there, the maximum temperature within that square, the minimum temperature within that, or I guess I shouldn't say square, it's more of a rectangle. You certainly can make a square if you want, but back to geometry here, a rectangle can be a square, but it is a rectangle. And that also show you the average temperature within that rectangle as well. You can also just make that rectangle full screen. Something to note here is the Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual does not support radiometric JPEG format images. So what that means is you're not able to open this imagery in something like FLIR Tools after the fact and adjust and view the infrared information that is captured by the camera. So you're going to be needing to adjust that or view that in a live capacity, not able to view that after the fact as a radiometric JPEG. Temperature measurement, a few things to note here, is affected by various factors. So reflectivity of the object, shiny metals with higher reflectivity are going to reflect more of the background radiation and result in lower accuracy, while something with a matte surface is going to have a higher accuracy. Also, the temperature of the background radiation will affect your reading. A sunny day without clouds will have less of an effect on the accuracy than a cloudy day. Temperature and humidity, as those increase, the accuracy is going to decrease. And then distance between the camera and the object, especially with a smaller resolution IR camera, definitely the farther away you are from the object, the lower the accuracy is going to be. And then finally, the emissivity of objects, emissivity and accuracy increase together. So some more technical IR terms here. DJI has recently released a guidebook going into this a lot more in depth, but these are just some high-level items to be aware of when you're looking at a temperature measurement using an IR camera. Offset adjustment, so as we talked about before, we're blending the visible and IR camera together. So if that picture is a little bit off, so you can see in the picture on the right here, the flower, when you look at it visibly, is not in line with the IR image. So we might want to change the horizontal offset. Went ahead and placed this clearly off the center, but even when it's at 0, 0, you may encounter an experience where it's offset a little bit, so you might want to make an adjustment one way or the other to line up that visual and IR image for the MSX if needed. Temperature alert is a feature that you can utilize when you have area measurement mode on. And after that, by going to the menu, you go ahead and enable temperature alert. And then you can see on that bar on the bottom where we're seeing maximum, minimum, and average temperature, there's also a temperature alert there as well. So then as the drone is flying along, great for perhaps a distribution situation, and it detects a temperature that's above your temperature alert threshold, you're going to get a visual beep, beep, beep alert from the application/mobile device, letting you know with the temperature alert that temperature has entered your area measurement rectangle. And during said inspection or search for a missing person, you go ahead and get a notification, be able to stop and inspect that area closer. ROI, another setting in the app, go ahead and exclude part of the sky so you can see a lot more detail in that bottom image when the ROI is turned on. You can do a 33% exclusion or 50%. So if the sky was 33% or 50% of your image, you'd want to turn those on. But if your gimbal is pitched down and the sky is not necessarily in frame, don't need to have the ROI enabled. Isotherms allow you to represent the data in a more detailed color scheme for a certain temperature range you may be looking at. So you can see in the top photo, isotherms are enabled for temperature range between 59 degrees and 98 degrees. And then in the bottom there, it's between 78 degrees and 98 degrees. So you can see all of a sudden everything below 78 degrees Fahrenheit with this palette is showing up as black. So it really highlights the specific isotherms area that one may be looking for here. Certainly want to be careful when utilizing the isotherm feature that whatever the temperature range is that you've put in will be something what you're looking for is within, but can be very useful to go ahead and bring out certain temperature ranges with the isotherm and change how that data is displayed to you to help you make more informed decisions. FFC calibration, there's an auto FFC mode, and then you can also go ahead and manually complete the flat field correction calibration within the application itself. A mouthful there, but it's just the FFC button. Comparing the thermal camera on the Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual and Visual Per Se with the Zenmuse X-T2, it's important to realize the X-T2 or the newer H20T is a lot more powerful camera. The Enterprise Dual can certainly help out in various situations, but it's important to realize that thermal resolution of 160 by 120 is going to have trouble picking up certain objects and heat signatures compared to the X-T2 at a 640 by 512. Digital zoom is supported for the X-T2 and Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual. It is not for the thermal camera. The visual camera, however, with the Enterprise Dual does support digital zoom. And you can see a greater temperature range with the X-T2 for looking at fire. Obviously, expanded capabilities in the higher temperature range can be important. Decreased temperature measurement accuracy with the Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual as well. And then just once again, reiterating, the radiometric JPEG is only supported by the X-T2, the H20T. A Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual does not support radiometric JPEGs. Some other various features here, you can see some of the ones we talked about here. The X-T2 does have some expanded features and capabilities as well, along with the H20T. Usage overall for the Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual that we've seen folks have success with: firefighting, search and rescue, power line inspections, cell tower inspections, law enforcement, bridge inspections. Overall, the system is a great, quick to deploy. We've seen companies, public safety teams outfit numerous members on their team who are able to keep a Mavic 2 Enterprise with them when they're going out for work or on their shift, easily accessible within the car. And then it's also the compact combination of the visual and the IR. And with that, it's at a lower price point, which really enables a little bit more scalability with the system itself. So once again, useful in some of these inspection scenarios as well. Modular accessories are supported by the Mavic 2 Enterprise series. The first one being the beacon, designed to fulfill the FAA's 3 nautical mile nighttime waiver beacon operating requirements. And you can see there's a little grippy screws on both sides, those circular prisms, I guess you would call them, that you can easily attach and remove the modular accessories. The next one being the speaker allows you to communicate. This is a one-way speaker, so you would speak into your mobile device and that would be then broadcasted over the speaker. Can also play audio files. You can also record messages and have those messages saved to play them over again. And then finally, the spotlight here, great to direct someone, great to help identify someone, or just enhance vision and situational awareness for the pilot in a darker area. What comes in the box with the Mavic 2 Enterprise series? We have the aircraft, a gimbal clamp to keep that gimbal safe during transportation, key components of the aircraft, stock remote controller, low noise propeller pairs, self-heating intelligent flight batteries, battery charger, AC power cable, spare control stick pair, will go on the RC, the various cords you would need for any updates or charging, a port cover when you're not using an accessory that can go on the aircraft, speaker, spotlight, a beacon, and then an IP67 rated protective case for the aircraft. Some additional recommended accessories should it be pertinent to your situation would be a shoulder bag, a little bit smaller for transportation. The flight battery charging hub can be very useful for putting multiple batteries on one hub. Car charger, power bank adapter, low noise propellers, additional for the aircraft if needed. ND filter set could be useful in sunnier type situations. Mavic 2 Enterprise Series protector case, and then crystal sky monitors could also be used with the remote controller, would need an additional mount in that case. Mobile app would be the DJI Pilot app, supported on both Android and iOS. Android is recommended though. The iOS version only has the basic functions currently, and this is the only enterprise drone that can be used with DJI Pilot on iOS. It also supports NFZ no-fly zone unlocking for DJI geofencing, and the DJI Qualified Entities program for specific industries and public safety users, being governmental or public safety users within the United States, Canada, or varies by region there. Software support, as we saw DJI Pilot, you could also use iPad if you have a mapping or waypoint mission and would like to use Ground Station Pro. And then you're able to update firmware using DJI Assistant 2 for Mavic on Mac OS or Windows. You can also complete most of those updates most of the time just using the DJI Pilot app that we talked about earlier. That updating feature just built into the app, and we'll get into that later in training. RC support, we talked about the stock remote controller, which you'd use personal iPhone, iPad, connect the Crystal Sky, an Android device, Android tablet. So those obviously are not built-in screens for the remote controller. The smart controller does have that built-in screen. And when we're talking about charging time here, slightly shorter for the smart controller, both around 2 hours, and then working time slightly longer for the smart controller, 15 minutes at 2.5 hours. Storage-wise, the stock remote controller does not have storage built in. The smart controller, however, does have 16 gigabytes of storage, plus a slot for an SD card if you'd like to scale that up. Supported devices for the stock remote controller is the Mavic 2 Enterprise series and the Mavic 2 series. The smart controller supports the Mavic Air 2 and the Phantom 4 Pro version 2 on top of that. And then brightness-wise, for the smart controller, as it does have that built-in screen, it's about 2 times a typical smart device when you're looking to consider that factor. DJI Enterprise Shield is a drone protection service plan exclusively created for DJI's commercial drone operators. It gives pilots peace of mind on every single flight. You can purchase Enterprise Shield for your Mavic 2 Enterprise series. You can contact your local enterprise dealer or send an email to na.enterprise@dji.com for more information. Some common FAQs here and refreshers as well. The difference between the Mavic 2 Enterprise and the Mavic 2 series. The Mavic 2 Enterprise is built on the Mavic 2 flight platform, but it is an all-in-one drone solution for industrial applications. Features an extended port to mount the modular accessories, comes with a self-heating battery, 24 gigabytes of onboard storage, DJI AirSense, and is compatible with the DJI Pilot mobile app. The password protection function is there to protect the 24 gigabytes of onboard storage. It does not apply to the micro SD card that's inserted into the drone. For GPS timestamping, that will record the time and the GPS coordinates of when and where images or videos are taken. For adjusting the spotlight and speaker angle through the remote controller, unfortunately that is not possible. You would have to adjust that manually before your flight or in between battery swaps if you'd like to make adjustments. Effective communication distance of the loudspeaker, depending on the background noise, you're looking at about 20 to 40 meters in general conditions. Operating modes for the speaker, as we talked about, can play a voice message that's pre-recorded with the DJI Pilot app or transmit real-time voice callouts. So you'd say it and then it would be transmitted through the speaker. What factors we talked about are going to influence the temperature, the atmosphere as a whole, the distance between the camera and the object, and the emissivity and background temperature of the object. The effective illumination distance of the beacon is approximately 5 kilometers. For the Mavic 2 Enterprise remote controller, we're looking at about 2 hours and 15 minutes for the stock controller there. You can use Mavic 2 batteries with the Mavic 2 Enterprise series and vice versa. The self-heating function is with the Mavic 2 Enterprise though, as we've talked about. You can charge batteries and the remote controller simultaneously using the Mavic 2 Enterprise charger. The intelligent flight batteries have an approximate charge time of 1.5 hours to go from 0 to 100. The maximum indoor flight altitude is 60 meters for the system. How to enable the self-heating function of the batteries. You can go ahead and power the battery off or just leave it off. Press and hold the battery power button for 5 seconds, and then it's going to go ahead and start that self-heating function. If the battery is already turned on, place it on the aircraft. The self-heating function is going to start immediately, and you'll see that actually in the Pilot app letting you know the battery is warming up if it is not at a sufficient temperature for flight yet. So potentially good practice would be, if you're at a scene, to go ahead and heat up a battery beforehand, and then kind of continue that cycle, heating up batteries, getting them ready to go. Mobile apps, DJI Pilot and DJI Ground Station Pro. You do not have to get an additional controller to use Ground Station Pro. You can go ahead and use that stock controller with a GS Pro. Just be aware when using an iPad, you might want an additional mount for that, as it's not going to fit in the little opening bottom claws, I guess you could call it, of the item itself. Do you have to manually enable the GPS coordinate and timestamp? Yes, that's a toggle in the app. It's going to automatically calculate that date and time and location. You don't have to type that in. You do have to turn it on though. The thermal sensor resolution is different than that of the image size. So you're not going to get an image size that's same as the thermal resolution because with real-time digital enhancements, the photo and video size is larger than the sensor's resolution. And then additional flight features, panorama capture is supported, as we talked about. That's in the camera menu, photo mode, and panorama. So kind of a flight feature, kind of a photo feature, blends the line there between the two. If you need more information on the system, visit enterprise.dji.com and you'll be able to navigate to the Mavic 2 Enterprise series. But hopefully this is a beneficial high-level overview of the system, what the features are, and looking to dive into the app and how to enable and change these features in our upcoming trainings. Thank you.